إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا أما بعد. We begin in the name of Allah, the Most High, the Most Gracious, the one to whom belongs all praise and all thanks. We praise Him, we thank Him, we seek His assistance, we ask Him for His guidance, we beg Him for His forgiveness, we seek refuge in Allah from the evil that is within us, and we seek refuge in Allah from the consequences of our evil deeds. Whomsoever Allah guides, none can lead astray, and whomsoever Allah allows to stray, none can guide. I bear witness that there is no being worthy of worship except Allah alone, the one true God, without any partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is His servant and His final messenger. We ask Him to bless and protect His last and final prophet, His family, His companions, and those who follow His way until the end of time. Some time ago, I heard a story of two parents who had a young daughter, 5 or 6 years old. And they came to learn that she was terminally ill. And once they learned that she was terminally ill, her sickness, it began to move very quickly through her body. And the doctors told the parents that she doesn't have long to live. It can be any day. We're not expecting it to last a year. And the parents, they took their daughter to the hospital. Their daughter stayed in the hospital. They would live at home, live at the hospital, between both, back and forth. And finally, they got the call from the doctors that we think you should come now, because we think the moment is very close. And they came to the hospital, and very shortly after they arrived, their daughter passed away. And when their young daughter passed away, both husband and wife, they fell into prostration. And the nurse, upon seeing this, was confused. What's going on? They just lost a daughter. So when both parents came out of sujood, the nurse asked, "What are you doing? What's going on? You just lost your daughter." And the parents, they said, "We were performing sajdat al-shukr, the prostration of thankfulness. That for 6 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this amana, gave us this girl to care for her, to love for her, to feed her, to take care of her when she was sick, to enjoy her, to feed her, to enjoy her smiles, her laughs, to comfort her when she was scared, to hug her when she was crying." So we were simply just thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the 5 or 6 years that He gave us with her. I start with this story because many of us, or perhaps all of us, including myself, we don't live with the reality that our time with our loved ones is finite. It's limited. It's literally like sand that is falling through an hourglass. We don't know how much sand is left. And for the sake of this khutbah, when I say loved ones, I want to focus on 3 relationships. There are others that are important, but I want to focus on 3 primary relationships. A husband with his wife, a wife with her husband, that's the first. The second relationship is between parents and children, and that's a two-way street. Parents with their children and children with their parents. And the third is siblings with one another. A brother with his other brother, a sister with her brother or her sister. These 3 relationships. We don't live with the reality that in each one of these relationships, whether it's the spouse, the child, the parent, the sibling, each one of those individuals is an amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a trust that Allah has given us. They are literally on loan. Allah has lent them to us. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides, He will take that person. It's not when that person reaches a certain age. It's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed. And that time has been set. If you ask yourself, what if Allah took them now? My spouse, my child, my parent, my sibling. Because Allah will definitely take what He has given. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, when someone would pass away and he would give them condolences, he would say, Inna lillahi ma akhadh wa lahu ma a'ta. That indeed to Allah belongs what He has taken, and to Him belongs what He has given. وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ عِنْدَهُ بِأَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى. And everything has a fixed appointed time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many of us think that that individual, that spouse, that parent, that child, that sibling will always be there. I wake up, I expect them to be there. That's why sometimes we're okay. We don't find it a big deal going to sleep at night upset at that person. I'm upset at my spouse because they did something. I'm upset at my child. I'm upset at my parent because they didn't give me something. I'm upset with my sibling because I don't feel like they're carrying their weight in the relationship. So we feel it's okay, I can be upset with them. I'm not going to talk to them for a few days. But what if we lived with the reality, not only the reality that I'm going to die, you're going to die, but that loved one, their sand is falling through the hourglass. And we don't know how much sand is left. So in the few minutes that we have, I want to focus on 5 keys to perhaps helping us improve these relationships. 5 simple keys. Because many times, especially the society that we live in, we're so self-centered. We're thinking about ourselves so much. We're not thinking about others. We're not thinking about the people that Allah has put in our lives as amana. Number 1, be intentional. What do I mean by be intentional? Be intentional in each one of these relationships. We know the Prophet ﷺ said in a famous hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَاتِ. Indeed, actions are by intentions. The time that you spent in that relationship, every moment of it is ibadah. When you're gentle with that person, when you're kind with that person, when you're soft with that person, when you listen to their stories that are going nowhere, when you listen to their stories that have absolutely zero benefit, that in itself is ibadah. When you're patient with them when they mess up, when you're forgiving, when you make a mistake, admitting that mistake, that is ibadah. Draw a picture for you, perhaps many of us have experienced before. Your child, my child, does something wrong, does something that we've told them so many times not to do, and they do it. Not only do we tell them that they should not have done it, but we lose our cool. We lose our patience. We yell. We raise our voice. We take it to a point where we make them cry. And then later on, they stop crying and everything's fine. But what if in that moment, or even after that moment, once you've cooled down, you went to that child and you said to them that, you know what you did, it doesn't make me happy. And I've told you not to do it before. But what I did to you by yelling at you, that was wrong. And I'm sorry for that. That is ibadah. That's what it means to be intentional. Because when we are intentional in these relationships, what we are doing is refining ourselves. We're fixing ourselves. Being intentional, it changes the flavor of daily life. It allows you to enjoy these relationships. These moments that I spend with my sibling, my child, whether it is through messaging them or calling them or FaceTiming them, that moment in itself is ibadah. Many times we think ibadah is in the masjid, or ibadah is dhikr or fasting. All of that is great ibadah and yields an immense amount of reward. But the time spent with that person, that spouse, that child, that parent, that sibling, that in itself is ibadah. So be intentional in your relationships. Number 2, embrace gratitude. Embrace gratitude. Story I heard about a year ago or a few months ago, there was an imam in another state. He told the brothers after Fajr
He said, I want all the brothers to take out their phone, all the brothers that are married. Take out your phone and text your wife, I love you. So all the brothers that were married took out their phone, they texted their wife, I love you. And then he said, throughout the day as they respond, or when you go home and they respond, I want you to tell me their responses. So later that same day at Isha, the Shaykh, after Salatul Isha, he told the brothers, he said, I want to read to you the responses. Some of the responses that the wives gave. Now obviously there was that small minority of wives that texted back, I love you too. But the majority of responses were, are you okay? Is everything okay? Please give the phone back to my husband. Why? Because these individuals, and I'm not just saying the husbands have to say to the wives, I'm saying in all of these relationships, the parent to the child to the parent, the siblings to one another, the spouses to one another. Because sometimes we take it for granted. I know I love them. They know I love them. But sometimes they're human. Just like I forget that someone else loves me, they forget. And this is a way that we show gratitude to them. They say gratitude magnifies what we already have. And when we embrace this feeling of gratitude, it allows us to enjoy the barakah that we are experiencing. Because what I have, not everyone has. And what you have, not everyone has. There are people that wish their parents were still alive, and my parents are alive. There are people that wish their siblings were still alive, and my siblings are still alive. So many people do not have what I have. So many people do not have what you have. The problem is, many times we focus on what we don't have. What hasn't happened in that relationship. The failures. I wish my relationship with my parents was like this. I wish my relationship with my sibling was like this. I wish my relationship with my spouse was like this. We hear stories, we see images, we watch movies, and we're like, oh, that's what a perfect relationship looks like. There is no such thing as a perfect relationship. Relationships, each one of these relationships, they require work, they require effort, they require sacrifice, they require patience. But when we shift our perspective and we focus on what is actually there, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually given us, and we look at that individual, that spouse, that child, that sibling, with the eye of gratitude, then it allows us to enjoy what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. You know, when you start looking at that loved one with the eye of appreciation and gratitude, then that person who you think has fallen short because you have such high expectations, because you show them that you're happy, you show them that you're grateful for their presence, they're now willing to go the extra mile. Because they feel motivated, they feel inspired. A person who feels appreciated is likely to change for the better. But a person who feels underappreciated, does not receive gratitude, they are less likely to change. You want to see change in your sibling? You want to see change in your child, your spouse? Be appreciative for who they are. Perhaps when they feel that joy and their happiness, that will push them, that will inspire them to go the extra mile. Feel the barakah of what you have. Embrace gratitude means feel the barakah of what you have. Number 3, we said be intentional. Every moment, everything that you do for them is ibadah. Number 2, we said embrace gratitude. Number 3, be akhirah focused. This world is a deception, it's an illusion. Every single person wants more. If someone came to you and they gifted you $5 million, you and I would immediately think, how do I get the 6th? We would already begin to plan out, what am I going to do with this 5? And then somewhere while we're planning, See, what if there was just a little bit more? Just a little bit more. That wanting for a little bit more never ever stops. But when the akhirah is constantly on our mind, everything becomes easier. Even these relationships. Because we begin to see these relationships as an investment in the akhirah. It's not just time spent with this person. It's bigger than my spouse. It's bigger than my parent. It's bigger than my child. It's bigger than my sibling. It's an investment in the akhirah. Everything I do for them, everything I say to them, every moment that I spend with them, I'm literally investing in my akhirah. And it is a guaranteed return. So be akhirah focused in your relationship with your loved ones. أقول ما تسمعون واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده سبحانه وتعالى حمد الشاكرين ونستغفره استغفار المذنبين المقصرين ونصلي ونسلم على خير خلق الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين.
Number 4, be realistic. Have realistic expectations. The reality is no one is perfect, not me, not you. Don't have a false image of relationships. You know where frustration comes? Frustration, they say, it comes between expectations and between reality. In these relationships, we have expectations. If the expectation is really high, and the reality is here, all of this in the middle is frustration. If the expectation is okay, it's decent, the reality is right beneath it, and the frustration is smaller. For example, parents. I'm a parent myself. We want good for our children. But sometimes our expectations of them are too much. And they feel like, I can never ever make my parent happy. I heard a story just a week ago. Young girl, 18, 19. Her father really wanted her to have a particular career. And she tried. She enrolled in the proper classes. She was getting good grades, but after some time, her heart wasn't in it. She didn't want this. So she went to her father and she said, my father, I love you, but I can't do this any longer. I'm not happy. It's not finding enjoyment in it. So he said, okay, if you don't do it, I'm going to get you married. As a punishment, I'm going to get you married. Literally, within a few days, she ran away from home. And then both parents, they came to a local imam. Faces and eyes full of tears. We don't know where our daughter is. Don't have false images of relationships. Sometimes children, they look at their parents. And they look at other parents. They say, I wish my parents were like that. Because they hear from their friends, oh, our parents are so amazing. So the children begin to wish, oh, we wish our parents were like that as well. This goes back to embracing gratitude, realizing what Allah has given you, and also being realistic with your parents. Your parents' situation is not the same as the situation of other parents. Their situation, because of certain circumstances and upbringing, is very different. Be hopeful, aim high, but at the same time be realistic. Manage your expectations. You know, in the famous story of the slander of Aisha, what is known in the books of Sirah as Hadithatul Ifk, when there was a slander, a rumor about Aisha radiallahu anha, that she had committed an act of immorality. And the rumor began to spread around the city. And the Prophet ﷺ and the companions, they heard it. After some time, the Prophet ﷺ, he began asking some of his closest companions, as well as some of the people that were closest to Aisha radiallahu anha, that what do you say about Aisha? What is your opinion about Aisha? And one of the women from the house of the Prophet ﷺ, when she was asked about Aisha radiallahu anha, this woman that is our mother, this woman that narrated so many ahadith, this woman that taught the next generation the religion, when she was asked, she said many good things about her. And she said, you know, Aisha, the one thing about her is that sometimes she's cooking food, she puts food on the stove, or their equivalent of a stove, and then she forgets about it. Now pause for a second. This is very basic. You put food on the stove, it's burning, there's a fire in the house. Once you get to a certain age, this is something that you're like, I should be responsible for this, I should realize this. But yet, our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, with her high status, in religion, in piety, a memorizer, a narrator of hadith, it's mentioned about her, sometimes she puts food and then she forgets. So the food gets spoiled. It was showing that even someone as high as Aisha radiallahu anha, at the end of the day, she's human. Have expectations that are manageable. Lower the wing of humility and mercy. And the last that I'll mention is remember death. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, that every soul will taste death. But that's not just you and me. That's that person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in our lives with love, has placed in our life, the loved ones. Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَكْثِرُوا مِن ذِكْرِ هَادِمِ اللَّذَّاتِ, frequently remember the destroyer of pleasures. That person that's in your house right now under your care, or that you enjoy valuable and precious time with, that person may not be there tomorrow. We hope that they're there tomorrow. But life has taught us, just within the Muslim SoCal community, every week there are a number of deaths, but within those deaths, there is always at least one that was quote unquote sudden, out of nowhere. The family didn't see it coming. Treat the amana that Allah has put in your life, treat it with care and love. Because essentially there are two options. Enjoy the blessing now, take care of the amana, or stand over their grave and regret what you should have done, what you should have said, how you should have acted. I've heard stories of parents with children, children with parents, siblings with one another, loved ones at the graveyard, at the gravesite, reminiscing, regretting. I wish I had picked up the phone. And just that issue that was between us, that had come between our hearts, I had just put an end to it. Even if I was guilty, I had said sorry. Even if I wasn't guilty, I said sorry. Those are the two options. Enjoy the blessing, embrace the gratitude, be intentional, be akhirah focused, or wait till they die and live a life of regret. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people who cherish our loved ones. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people that in our relationships with our loved ones, we are intentional, and that we embrace gratitude, and that we are akhirah focused, and that we are realistic, and we constantly remember death, not just for ourselves, but for our loved ones. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم أصلح لنا شأننا كله ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين. اللهم فرج هم المهمومين ونفس كرب المكروبين وقض الدين عن المدينين واشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين وارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. From this community, Brother Amin Khan, he has been sick. He was actually hospitalized this week for a number of days because of congestive heart failure. He's back at home, but he's still in need of our du'as. He's still sick. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him a complete shifa. شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم رب الناس أذهب البأس منه واشفه أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure all of our loved ones who are sick or who may be going through cancer or any other type of sickness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them a complete shifa and to give the family members patience and to forgive all of their sins. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصل اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.